Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bo Snail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
So John, was that you hitting the thumbs up on Kiwi's things he was posting? The numpty clips?
No, I don't know what's going on.
Good morning.
Morning.
I had trouble joining your show this morning. Did anybody else?
I did too. Took me 4 times.
It's working now.
Jolly good.
Well,
Hey, I thought that was pretty good what Bev showed yesterday with the LIGO and the canal on either side of the looked like a 90-degree building.
Indeed.
Very
One of a
good.
couple of things that's going to get discussed today. So one will be LIGO. So if I see him, the guy called The Apprentice, I think he was either a New Zealand or Australian. I can never tell the difference. Sorry, guys. Either way, he was saying, I don't get it. And I was trying to bleed out of him what it was about it that he didn't get. And you can't say what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So he was struggling to say it. And after the fact, Sleeping Warrior, who's now here, explained to me that, well, he saw Bev with no time restraints like there was on the live show, at ease, describing it casually. And upon hearing it described more casually, he understood the implications. You there, Sleeping Warrior?
Yeah. It's literally when you've not got someone sat with a mute button, like for instance Arwin. Sometimes when I'm talking, I'm expecting Arwin sat there like crouched over his microphone, just waiting to ejaculate into his microphone. That's the pressure that I can sense when I'm talking for any length of time, and I can feel, I can sympathise with the perception of pressure and rushing. And yesterday when he was making his point, I don't think the point that he made got the magnitude it deserved, because I think that he was able to take it off on a weird tangent that was unintended, but it was forced on him by the interactions at the time. So what it meant was that the magnitude of the point was completely, in my opinion, I think most people completely lost the magnitude of the point. But if he was to represent it without the pressure, the time constraints, the feeling that somebody's going to jump on him the minute he takes a breath, I think that it would be obvious that there is a massive contradiction. On the one hand, they claim that the LIGO is one of the straightest things in the known universe, and they calculated for Earth's curve when they built it. On the other hand, the canal that they built to be able to create the LIGO thing, that water has to curve if we're on a sphere. So if they've built it and accounted for the curvature of the Earth with regards to the calculations, and the canal alongside it is how they actually did it, then the canal's got a curve, and therefore the LIGO can't be a curve, or the LIGO is a curve, and the canal is, the LIGO is dead straight, and the canal is bending, and you should be able to demonstrate or measure or prove somehow, I don't know exactly how you do it, but there should be a way of demonstrating the differential between the Earth's curvature with the canal and the straightness of LIGO.
No,
And
no,
which
no,
way
no,
around
no,
is
no.
it?
That last one you can discount because that's self-defeating in the respect that the whole purpose of there being a canal there is to achieve the straightness. So to say, well, there's got to be a difference between the straightness they use to achieve the straightness of the machine and the curvedness of the thing they use to achieve the straightness of the machine, and how much there is a difference between the two. That's
Yeah,
self-defeating.
but you're assuming that. See, they say that curved and straight are similes, even though they're antonyms. They treat them as similes, and we say no, straight lines are not curved lines. But they seem to think that they are, and they think that the curved line of the canal would be represented by the curved line of the thing, which would be dead flat. So we're back at we live on a flat ball.
Yeah, to achieve flatness, you've got to get away from curvature. So, yeah, you're right. Antonyms, or the antithesis of one another, is what straight and curved are.
Listen to how ridiculous that sounds.
It's ridiculous, yeah. But
You
did
gotta
that
be
message
kidding
come?
me.
Did you get that message yesterday though when he was presenting it? Because I was here yesterday and I realised that the magnitude of that point was missed because of the conversation just took him away from it. But it's massive. If LIGO is straight, then and the canal is straight and level, then it's not curving, is it? But on their model, it needs to. So they can't have it both ways. Either LIGO is dead straight and the canal's bendy, or they're both level and not curving. So which way around is it?
The second, it's claimed to be straight, it's using water to achieve it, and in reality, it's obviously and observably flat. In their model, which isn't reality, it curves away at 8 inches per mile squared. Well, no. By practical application, that's not the world we deal with. And that's not the world they've got in the form of LIGO either. They can't have it both ways, Anthony. That's the bottom line, to summarise, just in case anybody doesn't get it. Because, as I said at the beginning of the show, there were people on yesterday's show that didn't. Now, I thought it was obvious. I was like, what's not to get? The water's flat, it's claimed to be flat, what's not to get? But, obviously there was, because somebody was saying it, that apprentice guy, and more power to him, he was trying to say, look, this isn't, I don't see the strength in this. Fine, well, now you can have it drummed into you. It can't be both used as flat water to achieve flat LIGO and curving at 8 inches per mile squared, not demonstrated to be doing so. You can't have it both ways.
That's why I brought it up early in the show, because I, like you, hopefully others got it, but it was such a good point, as Sleeping Warrior states, that it's worth revisiting.
Yes. I think the problem
How
came...
did people not get it?
Well, the problem came... I'm not going to blame QE, but the problem came because Bev has got a very strong piece of evidence and he wants to shout it from the hilltops. And he's like, look, when I get into the Black Swan argument, and we covered this yesterday, he reaches the point where he's actually got a concession. I just don't know if he appreciated it. It looped around beautifully towards the end of the live show because he's essentially saying you can't have a curved tangent. It's like, yeah, that's the conclusion of the Black Swan. So there was a semblance of agreement towards the end, but with Bev wanting to punt his argument and maybe coming across as saying, well, my argument's better, therefore the other one's worse. Maybe that is or isn't the case. I don't really care. He's got a really, really strong claim, and he's saying I prefer to use it, I'll use those words, over the Black Swan for whatever reasons he gave. Hopefully we overcame them. But it's a separate issue, it's a separate argument, it's equally strong. It doesn't need to contest with any other piece of evidence that destroys the globe, because why bother? You just present it as is and say you can't have it both ways. You can't have it be curving away at 8 inches per mile squared and utilising flat water to create the most flat thing you've got. You can't have it both ways. And which one is it actually doing? What are they actually saying it is? Well, they're saying it's level. They're saying it's flat. So what are you going to do? Just ignore what they actually say its purpose is, and one of the critical parameters of its purpose is being level. So you're going to say, no, it isn't, because my model. No, you can't have it both ways. That's the bottom line. Obviously, there's the Black Swan in and of itself, which becomes a second part of that particular argument, although we're not dealing with horizons. That's only because it's been weaved in by QE in that regard, but that's a second separate argument. We're currently looking at the Blackpool Swan, for all the same legitimacies that we've got in terms of their assertion of an Earth curve edge that gets in the way, with a tangent point drawn to it to do the geometry to a claim. We've got blockages of the boats, buildings, Isle of Man, whatever else they've claimed in the past. That's the second argument. But there's also a third argument which has been thrown into the mix. We're now a month in, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, which I'm really pleased about. So, conspiracy cats, thanks to Flatzoid for trimming this out, because I don't watch this stuff, but if it wasn't for the people on my own side trimming it out and people like Anthony mirroring it, I wouldn't come across it myself personally. So I'm very grateful to people like Flatzoid and Anthony for doing that. Anyway, Flatzoid has released a video about cats describing the diffraction limit in the form of the Rayleigh criterion, something that is not included in Earth curve maths. Now, the focus point for Flatzoid was to say, look, he's reversing the angle when he describes the limitation of the angle against the deck. He draws the angle back from the target. That's not right. Well, that's a correct and valid point, but no offence to Flatzoid, that's dealt with in a heartbeat. No, that's wrong. The angle goes this way from your eye to the target, not the other way around. However, he's conceding that things can disappear through this effect. Regardless of him saying, oh, it won't disappear from bottom up, though. You just lose it all. Okay, so there is another effect, coincidentally the very same thing we argued about for 3 straight years, called the diffraction limit. What's that? What's diffraction, Nathan? What, the thing I tried to bang into cats with him constantly Fundy muting me on Anthony's channel? The diffraction limit. Yeah, that's correct. He's now talking about it. And it's not in Earth curve mathematics. The only reason things disappear into the distance, regardless of whether or not he's obfuscating the fact that it's bottom up, they disappear because they're behind Earth curve. And only because they are behind Earth curve. That's what the calculator asserts. And 3 years ago we were saying, what about perspective? Things can disappear through an angular limitation. They reach and breach the diffraction limit. So how on earth has cats come to the conclusion that it's somehow beneficial to a globe Earth argument that excludes perspective, and a coincidence, of course, 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet is where you'll see this diffraction limit. Oh, my bad. 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height is where you see Earth curve, isn't it, in their maths? But he's talking about 1.2 over lambda. He's talking about the diffraction limit. Well, that's not in Earth curve maths. So there are other reasons why things can disappear, and you can calculate them with the Rayleigh criterion. Not in your maths. Things don't get to disappear because they've got too small an angle. That simply doesn't happen. There is no angular account in Earth curve maths. Everything stays the same feet and inches value. So well done, cats, for pushing it. I mean, I'm slightly aghast because I can't quite believe he's so stupid as to actually detail for a globe audience that things can absolutely disappear through some other effect other than Earth curve. Because that's the only effect in your Earth curve maths, friends. So thanks, cats. Yeah, the diffraction limit. Where's that in your begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve maths? It isn't.
This is where
Boy, what a position we're in. What a position we're in.
This is the point, Nathan, where you would give your illustration of the house brick from 10 feet, then 10 miles, and then stick some more bricks on top of it. And eventually you can see enough bricks to be able to resolve the thing that you're putting the bricks on top of.
Let's do that now. Yeah, let's do it properly. Hold on.
Tony, that's why I wanted to say the same thing there, because I thought Katz's demonstration was brilliant. I'm watching it. I'm thinking, this is great, Flat Earth. So what's he doing? Until he gets to the end, convolutes it, and then makes basically that statement that because the boat's the boat, you can see as much of the top of the boat as much of the bottom of the boat because it's all the boat. So it's just an angle to the boat. And then it went waffly and he reversed angles and the likes. But I was going to say the same thing to him. I think Katz needs the bricks explanation because
and that's my favorite.
That's the bit he didn't comprehend.
Let's go through now. Who's gonna be my counterpart?
It's not the only game in town. I just want to throw that out there. I've been waiting like 15 minutes to say something. I also debunked the heliocentric model in my own way last night. But you guys continue. I'll wait.
Do you want to do this with me, Anthony?
I'll be the sacrificial lamb.
Perfect. If I take a brick and place it at, let's just say 2 miles, just for quickness. Can you still see the brick at 2 miles if it's an 8-inch brick?
No, don't be ridiculous. You probably couldn't see that from, 100 meters.
Well, let's just say a mile if it's 8 inches. But at 2 miles,
Okay, a
we'll
mile.
assume
No, we can't see the brick at a mile.
at 2 miles, it's definitely long gone. Then you can't resolve it. It's too small. The angle's too limited. A la Cat's demonstration of the Rayleigh criterion and the diffraction limit that would be reached and breached at 2 miles. You would concede a brick at 2 miles, too small, 2C. Correct?
Yeah, it's the same reason why we can't see Paris from New York, Nathan. But I understand that because I'm a boring globe earther, so I understand that. So yeah, you're definitely not going to see a brick at 2 miles away.
What if I now pile on top of it a 10-story skyscraper or flats, whatever?
Yeah, I'll see that from 2. I'll see that from 2 miles away. Yeah.
And what about the brick at the bottom? Is the bottom brick still too small to see, or does it suddenly come back because you've built on top of it? So you still can't see the brick at the bottom of the tower. It's still too small to see. It's still in the most limited of angle. However, if you build on top of the brick, which is still in the limited angle at the deck, near the horizon, the stuff on top of it has a wider angle. You've increased the angle to the stuff on top of it, but the stuff at the bottom is still too small to see. Ergo, the building is now obstructed, according to their mathematics of Earth curve that's got in the way at this distance, to the tune of 8 inches per mile squared. No, there is a limitation to the brick at the bottom of the building, making it too small to see. But the rest of the building can still be seen because you've got a much wider angle to it. Likewise, in the boat example given by Katz, can you see the propeller of the boat? No. Why not? Oh, well, because it's under the water. Oh, so there's a limitation to our angle to the propeller because of the deck. The deck stops us seeing what's underneath that limitation. So we can't see the propellers. So our 0 line is going to be the deck. And from there you can work up and the angle gets wider and wider and wider towards the top. More and more limited towards the bottom, where the limitation of the deck starts. Towards the sky, no limitation on the flagpole, but a limitation that stops you seeing the propeller. Therefore, your 0 angle is the deck, and where the most limited angle resides, causing diffraction at the most limited angle.
The thing is, Nathan, there is a bit of a problem here, though. How big's a brick?
What?
How big's a brick?
I don't know, about 8 inches.
And over 2 miles, do you know how much curvature there is?
It's 8 inches per mile squared, Anthony.
Yeah, so there's 2.67 feet of geometric drop. So you wouldn't expect to see the brick at 2 miles when there's a 10-story building on top of it, because the brick would have gone behind the Earth curve, Nathan.
Okay,
That's wrong.
but I don't need the Earth curve to be an assumption in a begging the question fallacy when I make my example. If I say I do it on a runway, Anthony, if I stick it on a perfectly flat, perfectly level runway, at 2 miles, can you resolve a brick? We're going to take Earth curve assumptions out of the equation.
Yeah, but the obstruction I'm seeing is caused by Earth curve.
No, it's caused by, excuse me, the calculable limitation of the angle, as described by conspiracy cats, calculable with the Rayleigh criterion, detailed by a fundamentalist religious globe-believing zealot. You can calculate its disappearance by way of its limited angle with the Rayleigh criterion. It's called the diffraction limit.
So would you agree that it's an equivocation if I was to calculate the obstruction and blame it on Earth curve?
That's why we call it the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. When you put the view in orthographic and have the side of your own head on the one side of the page and the target on the other side of the page and a straight tangent drawn to an Earth curve obstruction, the only assertion for its disappearance, bottom up or otherwise, is Earth curve getting in the way. Now, how do they remove all aspects of perspective? That would be angular limitations and the diffraction limit causing it to disappear. Well, they give it a feet and inches value that does not change with distance. So in calculating the limitation of the angle detailed by conspiracy cats, you don't have those factored into your maths. You have one straight line and an Earth curve edge obstruction. Only an Earth curve edge obstruction. And the angles are ignored by way of feet and inches or meters attributions to the targets.
So what you're really saying is because objects do get obscured from the bottom up in real life, that correlates with a mathematical model that allows us to make predictions that seem to match it based on the conditions at the time, gives us loads of wiggle room to give arguments about whether the Earth's curved or not. But actually, it's a total equivalence and it's correlative. And basically, it looks a little bit like Earth curve, but really it's something else altogether. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying one of the many myriad of things that you could detail for why an object in the distance disappears, either bottom up or otherwise. One of those factors is calculable with the Rayleigh criterion. One. Just one.
So it's just a correlation then, Nathan. It just appears to be Earth curve, but actually there are other things causing it.
It doesn't appear to be a begging the question assumption of an Earth curve obstruction at a geometric point that we've debunked. I don't know why you keep weaving in this begging the question fallacy when detailing something that our opponents, in this case conspiracy cats, has detailed concisely enough for any idiot on the globe side to understand his very clear and concise description that things can reach and breach a diffraction limit.
Tony, just to help you, Mr. Baller, Tony, if you go to Baller Ranty, there's a picture on screen I did for him a while ago that describes this. He even named it Panda Boat.
Well, let me just answer Nathan's question. He said, I don't know why you keep going to it. The point I'm trying to make is for those of us that realize that mathematics is an abstract correlation with the real world that you can describe with mathematics, right? But because it's correlative and it's abstract, it doesn't mean that's the reason for why we're seeing the things we're seeing. So I can calculate it as though it were a ball, and it seems to match the real world observation where the angular size limitation and the reduction in visibility and the blending in, the diffusion.
No, it doesn't.
But if I calculate it as though it's a ball, you're going to think that the thing that I'm calculating means that we're on a ball.
Only if you think that the horizon is the beginning of that obstruction, which
Exactly.
is
There
the
you
Black
go.
Black Swan. Stop playing games.
Exactly.
There you go.
He's playing baller, Eli. But yeah, Eli said it, I've said it, Anthony will circle jerk 5 more times without taking the hint like Arwin does.
I'm sorry, because I'm just trying to get, you're burning up time. I'm trying to get to my thing.
Go ahead, Eli. Unless, Adam, did you want to make a point? I had your picture up, but did you want to make some
No,
point?
no,
for
no,
Eli?
no. That was it. It's an interesting point that Katz has got wrong when he could have. I think we've heard the Ranty who's got great understanding of how this compression works. Like I said, he even has a boat named after it. The Panda
It's
boat.
interesting that compression that he understands or used to understand, he seems to have completely forgotten it when he's making the claims of the mountain relative to Blackpool Tower. He seems to have completely forgotten about that compression artifact. So it's like, that's going to come back and bite you at some point, Ranty. We've still got the pictures.
Eli's busting.
Come on, Eli. Come on. Do you want to ejaculate for us? Tell us what it is that you're talking about, what you want to
Stop
say.
saying ejaculate. Ejaculate
Oh,
means incorrect.
yes. What? Go ahead, Nathan.
No, I'm introducing you, Eli, but Anthony's incorrect use of the word ejaculation. Ejaculate is to have an outburst.
Yeah, he's the pressure's building up. You can tell that he's dying to say whatever. So come on, Eli. Let it go.
All right. Well, first, let me ask you, gentlemen, if you were going to light 50% of your neck and above, where would the light source have to be?
If you had 50% of your what in a boat?
Your head.
50% of my head in a boat?
If you have 50% of your head lit, where would the light source have to be?
Above you.
Really? Okay, well,
On
that
the
works
side
too.
lit.
Sorry, make your
On the
point, though,
side,
Eli. Don't
up
drag
top.
out the misunderstanding of your point. Just make your point.
Okay, fair enough. So now I've been attempting to roll out this argument for a long time. I've shared it here. I've shared it other places. People get it. The ballers, they don't actually have any rebuttal whatsoever to it. And so this is about the geometric impossibility of the sun lighting the moon with you standing on a globe. So you have the sun that's setting yesterday. You have the moon in the phase where it's 50% lit to the west, where the sun is setting. 50%, right? And so I says, well, I'm going to wait till sometime after 1 o'clock to take an actual picture of the moon, just so everyone knows that it's there, even though time and date also says it's there, that it's in the same phase that it was all day. And the point is, at 1:17, when I took this picture, I had my friend Roger take a picture of the sun in Holland, in the Netherlands. That's geometrically impossible for the sun to be lighting the moon from that direction, because the Netherlands is east of my location, and I'm looking at the moon setting to the west with the portion that's lit 50% on the other side.
Cool, very cool. You'll have to present it diagrammatically in some form so that it can be shown digestibly, rather than here's the sun, here's the moon at my location, here's the moon or the sun setting at in Holland's location, my friend in Holland's
Master
location.
B.
I posted pictures. Do you want me to share my screen,
I don't know if
or
Adam's
are
doing
you
it.
going to pull them from?
I think Adam's done it for you.
That was just one of mine that I pulled up.
No, he's got them in Master B. He
Okay,
posted them.
Okay. Master
Give
B.
me a second. I'll set it up now. If
Oh, you're
Thank
going to
you,
put it
Adam.
up for me? Yes, please, if you can. Is it the pencil diagram?
That's one of them.
Okay.
Well, that is the diagram. Yes.
Well, I'll bring that up while we're waiting for Adam. Although everything seems to be... Everything's stalling on my computer today. It's not doing what I'm asking. Things are happening that shouldn't.
oh, stupid.
There we go.
You got it.
I've got the pencil diagram if you want to bring the others up while I'm doing it, and I'll present you afterwards. Okay.
Okay,
So what you're saying is, because you've got half shadow based on the heliocentric model, he's looking over. Sorry, you're looking over here. He's looking over here, and what you're saying is the sun would have to be to the left of your pencil diagram in order to give that half moon effect in the heliocentric system. Is that what you're saying? Well, it is what you're saying. I'm just summarizing.
The sun would have to be to the right, but it's obviously not to the right. It's to the left.
Okay. Cool. Very cool.
I bet they have an answer
So with what Adam is presenting, so this is timeanddate.com. So if you can see right there, it says moon direction, and it gives you the heading. It's basically northwest north of my location. That's the phase that I'm looking at. The lit portion is to the right. The shadow is to the left. But the sun is over there to the left in the Netherlands. If I'm on a ball, it's east of my location. At the very least, it would be underneath me and over my left shoulder or behind my left shoulder.
Cool.
So if you can go to the next one.
Yeah.
So I also illustrated it on this. Well, I did a little scribblings on there. So that's me in New York City. Roger's over there in the Netherlands. I'm looking at the moon with that phase, but the sun is shining on the Netherlands and everything in the Middle East already. It's 7 a.m. for him. It's 9 a.m. for the UAE. On a globe that makes no sense. Heliocentric model debunked. I don't care how big the Earth is. I don't care what refraction you use. Doesn't work. It's over. There is no argument.
Very good. Very good.
I got one for him.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead, John.
That's an excellent demonstration of time dilation.
No, no. Don't start making up heliocentric arguments on their behalf. I don't mind you playing devil's advocate. Unless I'm just... Maybe I'm being ignorant. What is the globe time dilation argument exactly?
Well, as the distance, like the curve of the geodesic.
You're just making this up. I can tell already.
No, it's the curve of the geodesic. Like with LIGO, depending on the inertial direction you're traveling, you'll have distances grow, and time will seem to last longer.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with these geographic locations?
I've been watching the behavioural panel called the Behaviour Panel. Anyway, they talk about something called fading facts. And someone starts strong, and then towards the end they start talking a bit more like this about what they've got to say.
Sort of like what John's doing.
Oh man.
He's slowing down, so he's dilating.
Yeah, but I thought they had an answer for
Look, this
all of
isn't
these
a-
things in the heliocentric model.
No, they've got a model that they can show you from various vantage points. But I'll be honest, my skepticism starts with every time I've looked into one of these wrong moons, then they manage to account for it in a model.
I don't see a problem with what was presented there.
Neither did
No,
I.
That's what they keep saying, but I keep tweaking it. There's no way out of this. If it's 50% lit, I mean, come on, the source would have to be adjacent, no?
no.
No, I agree. On the surface, it looks like I can't pick fault with this. On the surface, typically, I'd be saying, no, I'm sure they can account for this in their model. But on the surface, this looks sound. I don't know if Adam disagrees.
I disagree. Yeah.
Go ahead. Feel free.
I think it's perfectly doable. You've just got to spin your ball. Unfortunately, you first you've got to set up your alignment. So what have we got? We've got a 3/4 like that. So that means we've got a waning or a waxing gibbous set up there. And then you're going to have daytime occurring in the UAE. And with a waning and waxing gibbous, if you've got UAE at 6 o'clock in the morning, that means America's going to be, 5, 6, 12 hours nearly later. Let's call it 8 hours across the Atlantic. So say it's 9 o'clock there, you're getting 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, and you'll have the sun not in your skyline and the moon visible, showing either a waning or waxing gibbous at that time.
I was going to say, this is one of those things. In the heliocentric model, one of the things they tend to have pretty much pegged are the celestial movements. That works in their model really well.
Yeah, that's why you stay
But
away.
this isn't a waxing or waning, which I've tried to use before. This is a quarter moon. It's 50%. I don't know why they call it a quarter, but whatever.
That's just as fine. Fine. Makes
I'd
it
like-
easier. To be honest, that brings it in. The waning and waxing are a little bit more difficult to see, because you shouldn't see them technically, but they are observed. But like I said to you yesterday, they bend and they go to celestial horizons and stuff to make excuses, but it is doable. Because I had the same thing. We did the same thing, me and John Savage. That's that presentation I sent you, and you can't comprehend, but it is actually doable when they put it into 3D. So the second video I sent you was with Mike Kavanagh, and it's all done in the 3D, all these renderings, and we tried to find the most impossible moon phases
We did this too.
that we thought were there, and like I said, they were rendered and shown to be okay.
Right. We did this too. So, out of curiosity, because one of the first things I'd done was foolishly claimed an impossible moon like 5 or 6 years ago, and who was it, Anthony, that was doing our 3D rendering at the time? I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Chris Monk. And I just said,
Chris
"Can you
Monk on Blender.
Yeah, and he had just a fully working heliocentric model in Blender, and you're like, okay, can you put the moon in this position on this date? And he did, and I'm like, oh fuck, that works. And then I just rattled off a few others that people had given me, and they all worked. And from that day to this, don't get me wrong, I don't want to knock you down. I want to say, yeah, it looks good, knowing full well that in the back of my mind, that's why I'm peppering it with, my skepticism is this, that, and the other. Because, like I say, when I'd seen it modelled, and there's very few people that have got that. We cry out to them to give us a model. Well, as flat earthers, although Chris is now an ex-flat earther, we've had it modelled for us, or people in the flat earth have modelled it. I've seen other people do it too, in not necessarily Blender, but other 3D modelling programs. Like, there you go, there's your heliocentric model. The most fascinating thing for me was what happened when Chris turned the sun on. Do you remember that, Anthony?
I will when you start talking a little bit more. Go on.
Well, he's got all these, obviously all the different planets in the solar system moving around. And then he says all of these lights that you're seeing are moving around with the sun at the centre and the black, but there's no actual light in this model coming from the sun, casting light onto everything. And then he showed what happens when you turn on the light. It suddenly, everything looks wrong because it's got shadows on it in weird places that there shouldn't be. But yeah, whenever they show you, if you're lucky enough to see an actual rendered heliocentric model, the sun won't be turned on as a light.
No, I don't remember that, if I'm honest.
You might not have been there. I spend a lot more time. You tended to wander off, get bored and disappear, or do other things while I was sat for hours and hours watching Chris make stuff in Blender. So
I did fall asleep once. Do you remember me snoring?
Say again?
I did fall asleep once. Do you remember me snoring?
I do, but I just remember sitting up with him for hours and hours and hours and hours, modelling stuff out. Saying, what about this? How does this work? How does that work? Because I wanted a good comprehensive understanding of the heliocentric model, and suddenly I got this resource where somebody's got a model and they can show me it working. So instead of having to sketch out as Eli's done and conceptualize it in 3D, there it is in 3D, and you can go, here's how it works, here's how they're... And the conclusion I came to was the same as Adam's. In terms of the model, I've said this before, I just haven't given it any context. It is to be admired. It's a beautifully eloquent model, the heliocentric model. And my admiration for that model has gone up since becoming a flat earther, since getting a better understanding of it. You go, wow, it's a very, very good model. I'm not going to deny it.
If it's such a good model, hang on. If it's such a good model, how come we have that eclipse where the shadow's on the wrong side in that video we watch?
There's anomalies within the model. Nothing is perfect when you're trying to model something and correlate it with reality, because it isn't reality. That's the bottom line. It's just another philosophy. Equally, I could say, with the same admiration, has any of you seen Lord Stephen Christ's rendered 3D concave model? Has anybody ever seen that?
No.
It is exceptional.
Well,
Yeah, he's sitting in jail.
I would love to see them try to put this up on Blender, because when I did the sun setting on the west of, or on the east of Australia with the moon, yeah, someone modeled it, and I was like, okay, I can see how very close it is. But when you look at the observer's position, they're not looking at the phase that that they're suggesting works in the 3D. Like,
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Neil, Father of a Stolen Child, Eli, Chocolate, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Morning, morning.
Hey, 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 hey.
And everyone.
Good morning.
Get hello for someone in Discord. Hello, hello. Hello, good to have you all. Welcome, one and all. Any evidence of a physical, geometric, sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, and I'm going to preface this by saying it's the single assertion in the Earth curve mathematics. Any evidence of Earth curve?
Only in the maths.
No evidence, but we know how far the LIGO goes.
Well, that's the assumption.
Oh, that
everything-
was amazing. We know how far the lie go.
I didn't pick up on that pun. Glad Eli's here. Good job. We know how far the lie goes. That's brilliant. That's probably one of the best to date.
Yeah, that was good.
Excellent. We also had a concession, which I'm going to go into now, which I'm quite pleased about, to say the least. So, hashtag conspiracy cats. Thank you very much indeed for conceding perspective. Again, so 3 years ago when we were arguing about the Isle of Man, we were discussing the requirement to include the fact that things can get too small to see, and this is calculable with the Rayleigh criterion. Now, Conspiracy Cats has done a very nice presentation, albeit with one error in terms of calculating an angle back from a target to the observer when describing it not being too limited. Other than that minor error, which we'll excuse, Cats has conceded that things can get too small to see by way of calculating the angle for the thing that you're looking at. Now, given that back when we were arguing with the calculators and people were applying it to pictures that we saw, in this case, of the Isle of Man, there was no angular representation calculable. There was just a straight line drawn with a tangent point claimed to be blocking the bottom of whatever we were observing. There was no representation of its angular size, and certainly no concession that things could disappear through any other cause other than the calculator's assertion that Earth would get in the way. Now, I'm sure lots of globe-believing fundamentalist religious zealots are now acutely aware that things can definitely disappear, and it is definitely calculable by way of the diffraction limit in the Rayleigh criterion. That's not in Earth curve maths. And the way it's excluded from Earth curve maths is by way of using feet and inches values for targets. So there is no perspective in Earth curve, but perspective is real, and things can get too small to see. It is calculable. Now, in the pre-show, we gave an example with Anthony playing along, although I'm just going to do it on my own in this live show, just so we can get through housekeeping. If you take a brick that's 8 inches and put it 2 miles away on a runway that's perfectly flat, you can use the Rayleigh criterion to calculate how quickly it will disappear, i.e., at what point it gets too small to see. And we will assume, without doing any maths, that an 8-inch brick is too limited by way of its angle at 2 miles. So at one end of the runway, looking to the other, you cannot resolve the angle to the brick. It reaches and breaches the diffraction limit. At that point, an industrious little worker bee decides to build a 100-story skyscraper on top of the brick that is too small to see because its angle is too limited against the deck. Now, from that same exact vantage point, you can see the now increased angle to the bricks above the brick that is too small to see. Ergo, you can see the building, but you can't see the bottom brick because it's too small to see. Now, this is the diffraction limit in action based on the limitation with the deck. If you were to transpose this into the water, your 0 line is the deck. That is the limited angle starting point. How can I explain this? What's your angle to the propeller? Oh, you can't see it. What's stopping you seeing it? Well, the water's stopping you see it. It's underneath the water. Oh, right, so we don't have any angle to the propeller below that 0 line. Well, in the case of this picture in orthographic Muppet view on my screen, the bottom angle is more limited. And it's more limited the further away something gets, because you have a limitation of the deck itself. Now, the top has no limitation. There's just sky above it. Nothing stopping the limit of your view to the bottom brick in my example. But if you can make it disappear because of a limited angle, then that should absolutely unequivocally be included in your begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculations. And it is not. Meters or feet only for the targets. They do not reduce in angular size to the point where they could disappear completely, as described by conspiracy cats. So hashtag thanks, cats. Glad that you can now concede what was formerly known as flurf-spective. Easy to handwave and ignore until one of your own side, in this case conspiracy cats, is detailing the very real effect of perspective reaching and breaching a diffraction limit, causing things to disappear from view. Definitely not in your Earth curve maths. Excellent concession. Thank you very much indeed. Conspiracy cats. Anyone want to add anything on this?
At least they're coming around. How long have you been doing this illustration with the brick?
3 years. We've been given that example in ever more
At least they're
refined
coming
ways.
around.
Yeah, it's kind of like buying a really, really good, powerful gun and then shooting yourself in the foot with it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's
He, up until now, could have taken a perceived win when I discussed this matter with Anthony and him on Anthony's channel. And when he got to the diffraction limit, he just rumpused the crap out of me. Now, Anthony didn't do anything about it at the time, but I was trying, or attempting, to describe the diffraction limit, a complex discussion. And he just rumpused me. Now, when he reached the point where he's like, what's diffraction? I was like, I'm going to get 3 seconds to give what is presumably going to be at least a 2-minute explanation for things reaching and breaching the diffraction limit. So I shut down. And he took that as a perceived win. Like, he doesn't know what diffraction limit is when I'm trying to explain it for about 3 straight minutes with him interrupting me constantly. Now, as a result, the trolls have taken that as, well, that's a win. Nathan doesn't know what diffraction is. When I'm desperately trying to detail it in light of a calculation with whole numbers, feet and inches or meters, ascribed to things that can get smaller with distance, to the point where they reach and breach the diffraction limit. Now, even in summary now, about 1.5 years, 2 years later, it still takes more than about 3 seconds, i.e. longer than it would take cats to interrupt me to stop this devastating detail reaching an audience. And he'd prefer to rumpus me. Now he's into actually detailing it himself with the diffraction limit I was trying to explain to him back in the days when I was actually out on other people's channels, I might add, discussing these matters. In light of our victory at the Isle of Man, when we prove beyond all certitude you assume an R value you haven't got any evidence of, and ignore all aspects of perspective. Well, now here we are, 3 years later, with our opponents detailing the diffraction limit with Rayleigh criterion. Oh my god, how times have changed.
You need to do a side-by-side video. Like him doing it now and you doing it then. Oh, it's comical.
Yeah, so this is something that we've been trying to detail to you fundies. But what was it called? Oh, it was called flurfspective, when you hand-waved it. Well, now you got one of your own side detailing the damn thing to you. That doesn't include that effect in your maths. It's not there. Doesn't matter if the building is 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away. It's a 100-foot building in Earth curve maths. So while Katz is going on and on about, as the thing gets further, the angle gets more limited. Yeah, that's correct. Does the size of the building in your Earth curve maths get more limited? Oh, no, it's still 100 feet, isn't it? Doesn't matter if you're right next to it or if it's 100 miles away. It's still a 100-foot building that you're going to calculate. What about that limited angle as it gets further away? Oh, yeah, that's not in your Earth curve maths, is it, Katz? Nice that you're highlighting our point to your globe-believing audience now.
Hey Nathan, hey everyone.
Hey, Brian.
I couldn't come in earlier. I just like to. Hey everybody, hey Chocolate. I just like to add in there that they, I know Cats has done it now, and that's because they are in a position where they need to use perspective. With, the most recent observation with the Blackpool thing, they have to not believe that, or have had to not believe that visual effects aren't real. They can state they're real in a debate. They can claim them as our curve when it suits them. But when you show the same exact visual effects or effects of perspective in an observation that doesn't suit them or won't help their belief, because they need these things because they can't measure and demonstrate coverage of, and they never have been able to. And that's why they lost the debate in 2015. They lost it in 2015 because they couldn't demonstrate their claim. So ever since then, what they've had to do is take perspective and claim it as our curve. But simultaneously, while claiming perspective as our curve, denying that very same perspective in observations that doesn't suit them. And this is only just like a milestone really with conspiracy cats, detailing and addressing that things can get smaller with distance, because they would not accept even a simple thing like angular size change. They would speak about it, but when it came to showing them in an observation, they would claim everything is our curve and nothing can be angular size change. And that's just angular size change. Not even speaking about, we're not even speaking about any other effects, just purely angular size change. They would not address it.
Well, this is.
But they will say it's real.
Well, this is the
Every
thing that.
once in a while they will though.
Well, this is the thing that amazed me, Chocolate and Brian. Sorry, Chocolate. This is what amazed me. So I'm watching this on Flatsoid's channel, going, I can't quite believe what's happening. I was aghast, going, my God, conspiracy cats, you're detailing our argument to your audience. An argument that is completely ignored in Earth curve maths. And we fought tooth and nail whilst being berated as using perspective when detailing the Rayleigh criterion, which apparently we don't need because we're doing geometry. That's now debunked by the Black Swan. So it's like, you couldn't pick a better, from our perspective, or worse from Cat's perspective, time to start highlighting the Rayleigh criterion. I mean, has the guy lost his marbles? From the Globe side, this is awful. Why would you do this? I mean, I'm really pleased. Great. So what's diffraction, cats? Something that's excluded from your maths. What's diffraction? That limit that can be reached and breached for things to disappear. So something other than Earth curve then, because you've only got one assertion in your Earth curve column. Earth curve, not perspective, not flurfspective as it was hand waved 3 years ago. Now you're detailing the very effect to your audience. I can't believe our luck. It's like he's on our side. It's like Ranty, who, let's be honest, wasn't that useful when he was here, is now over there on the Globe side fucking everything up for them. And Katz, who was formerly our opponent, is now on our side telling them about perspective. We're an upside down world.
We are, Nathan, because they're claiming perspective as their argument, and we're claiming geometry at this stage as their argument.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to...
Bizarro world.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get across to the audience yesterday. Don't go past the win. At the point where you're having to say to them, no, you should be claiming Earth curve gets in the way. No. When you reach the point where someone like Craig, Fight the Flat Earth, is saying, don't listen to these flat earthers when they say a bulge should get in the way. Take the win. Yeah, that's right, boys and girls. Don't listen to flat earthers. Sorry, this is definitely a Globe claim, that say bulge is going to get in the way. Don't listen to those stupid people, because that's what it's reached the point now, where people like Craig have to tell you that when we say there's a bulge going to get in the way, that we are wrong. We don't say there's a bulge that gets in the way. We've debunked the bulge that gets in the way, but can concisely describe your claim of a bulge getting in the way. but your audience should disregard us saying you say a bulge would be in the way, because it isn't. So you're going to tell your audience ignore flat earthers claiming the bulge should be there. We don't. You do. It's a bit like Simon Dan telling his audience that our reference frames are ruined. We don't have any. It's a globe claim to prove spin. But you can tell your audience how the flatties and their reference frames are ruined, or the flatties and their bulge are ruined. No, we've just won. You've literally got to deny your own claim in the first instance now. Or start fighting our arguments about how the Rayleigh criterion can definitely be factored in, but isn't in Earth curve assertions.
Oh, we're in a good position.
Nathan, I threw one of my favorite concessions of a Glober in, I think it was Master B or Ballbusters, one of them.
Disappearance 500 feet when the globe model predicts the horizon is 2,600 feet away. So what's blocking the boat if it's not at the horizon yet?
I don't see anything blocking the boat. I see the resolution. I see the camera being unable to resolve the boat.
Oh,
Welcome to Flat Earth.
Welcome to Flat Earth, my friend. Snacks to the back, bathrooms to the left. DJ's taking requests, and smoke them if you got them.
They're so confident.
Welcome,
I wish
Unorthodox.
but
Unorthodox.
it doesn't disappear. It just
You
unresolved.
you just snatched your own wig off. Unorthodox.
Look, this video I just
Yeah, that's it. When you reach the point where all you have in your memory banks is something that you've hand waved as an explanation. So presumably an orthodox has gone, what can I explain this with? Well, he's presumably listened to many hours of us detailing the diffraction limit and the Rayleigh criterion. And then he's gone, well, it's obviously just an optical effect. It's like, what? So when we say the same exact thing happens, but it's a little bit further away and you ignore all perspective, put it in orthographic view, and then claim that a 100-foot building's got 10 foot missing, then it's not optical. Then it's going to remain the same feet and inches value, and an assertion of a geometric physical sphere edge horizon debunked by the Black Swan is going to be the cause in that instance. But if it happens a little bit closer, it's an optical effect. Yeah, welcome to Flat Earth.
Wow.
I hope this is sinking in. I mean, I've been like a giddy schoolboy for the last month. While I've been told in comments that I'm panicking, it's like, man, things are really turning around for us. It's great. Get to talk about perspective and how the calculator doesn't have it. We get our opponents detailing them how the Rayleigh criterion works. Happy days. Man, what have I got to do? I don't need to do anything. If you want to know how things can disappear beyond the assertion that if you assume Earth curves get in the way, go and check out Conspiracy Cat's video. He says, look, if it reaches its limited angle, it'll vanish. Yeah. Something that's definitely not in your Earth curve maths. So go and check him out. I don't need to do any work. The Globers are doing it for us.
I said it 3 weeks ago. Just keep letting them talk.
Or alternatively, if you want to know how there's absolutely no way you can measure 8 inches per mile squared, go and check out Ranty. He'll tell you how it's locally flat.
Now, in the same way, Ranty's argument with the mountain, they'll say, "Oh, that's Earth curve," but then the picture that I posted in Master B with the dock house higher than the hills of the mountains behind it, they're like, "Well, the ratios aren't right because it's closer." No, it's the same effect. So they just pick and choose what optical effects they're going to hijack and when.
No, they don't. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm rejoicing. They might, at trench level, as Ruhif, Katz and Ranty have done, decide to take an effect of perspective, pull out some data from the Earth curve maths and Google, translate it into a perspective description, and then translate it back into the Earth curve maths to make an assertion of drop. Now, that convoluted gaggle screw of nonsense isn't the assertion. The assertion is the Earth curve maths is something that you can compare to a picture to see how much Earth curve gets in the way. And if it's not quite getting in the way enough, you can refract the target with respect to the geometric horizon with 7/6 of a radius, because it's geometric and requires that R value that's debunked by the Black Swan. That's the actual claim. Earth curve gets in the way of boats and buildings. Check out any National Geographic video or any non-trench anti-flat earthers argument about what proves Earth curve. They prove it's proven by the horizon. That's what they'll say. I claim we've got an Earth curve edge that gets in the way of that boat, and look, the boat's going over it. Oh, really? Would you not say that potentially has reached and breached a limited angle, therefore you can't see it anymore because it's gone beyond the diffraction limit? As described by conspiracy cats? Because this geometric assertion of Earth curve getting in the way has no angular size change difference. It says the boat's 50 feet high, and it's still 50 feet high 100 miles away. Well, obviously it's too small to see. Is that factored into the Earth curve maths? No. So your actual claim, regardless of the trench level gaggle screw of nonsense they've extrapolated out from an Earth curve mathematics that they don't want to use really, because it's got a geometric horizon in it now, hasn't it? They'd rather just cherry pick out a bit of drop, do a bit of translating into a Mong trig that they're going to burn as a flat Earth claim later, and then translate it back in and say, look, it's the right amount of drop behind this Earth curve we can't see when we crop the image.
Yeah, but that's where they're at now. You see, now it's the case of there is no refraction. It's locally flat. LIGO proves the globe because it's so horizontal, and the perspective is curvature. And
imagine going back to 2015 and telling them, guys, you realize in 5 years you're going to be telling us in 2020 that you don't have a geometric horizon, and then in 2021 you're going to tell us it's locally flat. You guys are going to tell us that.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the few times I can turn around and say, at the moment, if I was a newbie who just arrived at this very channel, in years gone by, I've said, no, too cutting edge for a newbie, go and watch a bit of Mark Sargent, get your head around a change in paradigm first, and then come here. At the moment, if you just happen to land here, it wouldn't matter which side of the trench you listened to, you'd still realise it was flat.
I think 5 years ago, Chocolate, if you'd have said that, you'd have been called an utter moron, mate.
I think you're right. And now the utter moron that would have called us that is now claiming it's locally flat. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, right. I just want to point out that that very guy that you're speaking about, Rumpus, he has supported no refraction perspective argument that involves a locally flat, geometric horizonless photograph since it came out. So Rumpus is stating that it's perspective and locally flat that proves the curve, and there is no refraction.
They'll support O'Brien, won't they? That gives them a faintest hope if there's any indication that they could have some waffle around it just to keep their hopes alive. They'll support it, mate, even if it's contradictory, as they show now, to previous positions.
Oh, I think some of them have to. I don't think for 1 second that people who are in the know on the Globe side are in any way thankful to Katz for what he's doing currently. I'm almost certain that they'd rather he kept his mouth shut. Because arguing in the framework of perspective with a gaggle screw translation with whole numbers taken from heights you haven't acquired is embarrassing in the first instance to just a cursory onlooker. But in the most devastating part of the argument, you've got something that is excluded, nay, hijacked in their Earth curve maths when they ascribe feet and inches values to targets. So having someone on the Globe side saying, look, this target reduces in angular size. Oh yeah. And it does that when you tell us how much should or shouldn't be seen based on how much Earth curve gets in the way in these Earth curve maths. That reduction in angle to the point where it can disappear completely, that's factored in, is it? Oh, it's not? Well, what's the excuse? Should we go back in time and see what the excuse for why it's not in there? Oh, it's because it was called flirtspective, as opposed to being detailed concisely by Katz currently. You couldn't make this stuff up.
Well, I would just like to say that LIGO proves the globe because it's just as horizontal and flat as the canal that runs along the side of it. And this is provable by going to Google Earth, which is the globe Earth representation, and doing the elevation profile of the canal and the LIGO arm or the LIGO tunnel that's next to it. As shout out to Brian Mabbitt, as he showed last night on Brandon's. There you go. It's all horizontal and flat. It's locally flat. It's a globe.
Okay, let me just paraphrase what Brian said in sarcasm. He's saying, sarcastically, because LIGO is perfectly level and flat, and because they utilised a canal, which is a water level, to achieve it being perfectly flat, therefore, it's a globe. Now, that's paradoxically, nonsensically stated by Brian in sarcastic tones, but I'm going to rephrase it. It's flat because it's obviously, observably, and measurably flat. This is backed by the fact that water, quote, level was used to create something that is claimed to be about as flat and level as it can be. Now, none of those descriptions include anything whatsoever to do with a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, or an assumption of a radius value, or an assumption of tangent planes being drawn out from any particular point on LIGO to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. None of those things which fundamentalist religious globe believers do comport with what actually takes place on the flat plane we dwell atop. One of those things being water level and LIGO described as perfectly flat. These are demonstrators of a flat plane. Further to that, it's being described by Fundy globe believers as how flat it actually is. That's the current situation, right, Brian? They're telling you how flat it is, right?
Yes.
So they're saying
Loving
that
it.
their tube doesn't work because it's a straight tube that isn't a straight tube. It's a level curve tube, so it wouldn't work for LIGO. Is that what they're claiming now?
No, they're claiming that LIGO was built without the curvature of the Earth in mind.
Yeah.
And the proof of this, if anyone wants to know, and this is proven by Brian
What?
Abbott, flat out there, right, is that you can go into the Google Earth and do an elevation profile of the LIGO tunnel that's next to the canal, and you can see that it's just as flat and just as level as that canal. It's a globe.
So the LIGO tube is bent then,
No, it's not.
but it's level with the water that conforms to their ball, they're saying.
No, it doesn't conform with the ball. That's the point. It's not conforming with a ball. Adding in this nonsensical position after describing how not curving it is ridiculous. Now, we've had it done by Brian in sarcasm. We're having Adam do it in summary on their behalf. It's nonsense. We described it in the pre-show. You can't have it both ways. It can't be perfectly flat and comporting with a sphere with an assumption that it's bending away from your vantage point at 8 inches per mile squared. You can't have it both ways. Now, which is the actual description of what it is? Flat. That's what it's described as.
I do it without sarcasm.
Otherwise,
Brian
LIGO
Abbott.
wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
Brian.
Well, hold on. Let's just say that again about LIGO, and then Brian, yes, say it without sarcasm. But because what LIGO? What?
Otherwise, LIGO wouldn't work.
Precisely. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of stepped on Rams there. Brian Abbott showed last night, and I checked it today, that you can do an elevation profile on the tunnel that on the arm that runs along the parallel to the canal. You can do an elevation profile on that and do an elevation profile on the canal. And you can see that the canal is even more level and flat than the LIGO station, because you're doing it at the top of the tunnel, so there's probably variations in the concrete, but it's more level and flat. And Brian Abbott showed that last night on Brandon's.
And
I
these
wasn't joining in, Nathan, with Brian. Genuinely, I was trying to figure out what convoluted waffle they were actually saying, because it is having your cake and eating it. I understand now, but I didn't. I assumed they were arguing a better position than that, and I was trying to figure it out, but there isn't one.
I mean, you could tell it's you could tell it's curved because it looks so flat. I mean, why would you assume it's anything else?
Yeah, welcome to Flat Ball Earth.
Kick right.
No, just welcome to Flat Earth. You don't need to pepper in the sarcasm or the devil's advocate position or try and fathom a nonsensical position on their behalf. Just say it like it is.
No, I didn't believe
that'd
that
be
that's
my
what they
point.
were saying. I assumed they weren't saying that. I was misunderstanding it because that is so nonsensical.
Yeah.
What
to
they
us-
will try and say, sorry, Nathan.
No, go ahead, Brian.
I'm just going to say what they will try and say to the LIGO argument, not that there is one, but what they will try and say is that they use GPS when they were building, as part of the building of the arms or whatever of the LIGO station. But what they used was DGPS, which is differential GPS, and it is like all GPS, right? It uses Cartesian flat Earth coordinates, and DGPS is claimed to be basically Earth-assisted GPS. So all it is signals and receivers. That's all it is. And you could have a small DGPS in your kitchen if you wanted, because all it is sending signals and receivers. That's all it is. That's the basics of it. Now they don't. I'm not saying that they're doing it that way, but it can be done that way. It's total nonsense.
But if the LIGO facility wasn't perfectly flat and perfectly straight, then it wouldn't work properly, would it?
Correct.
According to their narrative,
No.
yes, that's correct. That's what they're saying. So they're having to argue, well, yes, it's perfectly straight, level, flat, however you want to describe it, because that's part of the parameters
So
that are
it shouldn't
described in
match
LIGO.
the curvature of the water in the canal, should it? It should be different. If the canal is
that's the problem. You can't have it
curving
both
with
ways.
the Earth,
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't have water conforming to a sphere, and at every local position on it, you're going to draw zeniths to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, and then there's drop either side of you, and then you move along another quarter of a mile, and it does the same thing. All of those presuppositions don't comport with it being level. So they can't have it both ways. And when they describe it, they can only go along with the description of how level it is. So they tell us how level it was, and then the guys on my panel are going, so what do they do then? Say, well, therefore it's a sphere? And they're all, my panel are all scratching their heads going, how'd you get around this? You don't, globe believers. Earth's obviously observably and measurably flat. And when we describe how flat it is, we go to the elevation profiles used by professionals in Google Earth that show it's flat, measured flat, no drop.
Don't they have a problem with geometry again if they say locally flat? If their Earth radius of the presupposed Earth is 3959 over 20 miles, that'd be 266.75 feet of curvature that would drop and, bottom up disappearance. So how could they even say locally flat if their this is the black swan in a sense from the other way.
Yeah, you can't. That's the answer. You can't describe something that's supposed to have curvature as being flat in any instance. And it shouldn't be. There shouldn't ever need to be any excuse for why it isn't represented as curved. It would be curved if we lived on a sphere. The bottom line is, there is absolutely no demonstrable evidence of any curve, and what is asserted to be the proof of curve is a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that's claimed to obscure things when you exclude perspective. That's the assertion. Now, we've debunked that 18 months ago with the Black Swan. Nothing's changed. Things are only getting worse for the Globers. We're now in a position with Flat Earthers where we say, if you go to our opponent's channel currently, they'll tell you how flat it is.
Yeah, it should really be just self-evident. And if it was, we wouldn't be here talking about it. The very fact that they have to defend it, to me, is one of those things that, well, obviously it doesn't stand on its own two legs, your little model. That's why you have to defend it. It's ridiculous.
Well, when their own geometry destroys it, it is a model, it is a presupposition, because they can't use the geometry that they say it's got its foundation in.
Right.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. The very assertions they made here 3 years ago are all debunked and invalid because they no longer have a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon, and they're begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator doesn't have any angular size changes at distance, which is another effect that can cause things to vanish completely.
I think if we go back, you said defend it, Chocolate, and I think that probably could have been the case 4 years ago. I don't think that's the case now, and it's probably the cause of such mental pain is that instead of defending it, they're having to lie for it for their ball now.
Yeah.
We're seeing that.
But it's a funny example. Like, you heard the clip with Unorthodox, right? When he answered the question, it was almost like he sounded confident in his answer, but not realizing his answer is our answer, right? Like he's supposed to have a completely different answer, but when told that the parameters of his response, which is, you know, Earth curve, can't be in contention because there's no Earth curve at that point for that boat to disappear, he very calmly says, yeah, I just see the boat not being able to be resolved by the camera. And it's like, I mean, you heard us. We're all like, okay. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Sad thing is, he still doesn't realize.
But it's like, as they're saying it, it's like, I don't know. I don't understand the psychology of it. It's crazy.
As he was saying that, he didn't have a problem saying that because he didn't have to defend his globe at that point because there was no horizon. The horizon was behind that. So all he had to do was just give an honest answer. So he didn't need to tell a lie or to make stuff up or to try with gymnastics, mental gymnastics and mathematics. He just said, no, we just can't resolve it. You know, because that's what is actually happening. So at that point, he was able to just be honest. But if that boat was beyond the horizon, well, he perceive it. If it's missing a bit of it, then it's definitely gone over the curve that he believes is there.
But the funny thing is, this is the same guy who's been here on this show numerous times telling us that the things only disappear because of curvature.
Chocolate, do you remember the illustration? Because you used to work in the lumber shop, as I recall. And I said, these ballers, when they say straight is curved and curved is straight, they're lying, because when they go to Home Depot or a place where they could buy wood, and they're looking for 10, say, 2x4 pieces, they're looking at it and they'll say, no, not this one, it's warped. Give me that one. Let's check that. Yeah, this looks straight. Okay, not this one, it has some curve in the, yeah, that one looks straight. Yeah. They know the difference between curved, warped, and straight, except when it comes to their presupposition.
Everybody does until that knowledge messes with your world paradigm. Then all of a sudden that has to change, and then you start saying silly things like levels curved and you know, things like that. Because what else are you going to do? It's like cognitive pain that you're going through.
Right. And a need to try and explain away things like perspective and the Rayleigh criterion will lead you to detail it, thinking, well, I've done a good job now. I've explained the Rayleigh criterion. I've just completely ignored the fact that it's not included in Earth curve maths because the targets don't get smaller with distance to account for this angular limitation that could cause them to disappear. But I'll detail perspective, because then it feels like I've challenged their ideas of perspective because I know more about it than they do. And because I know more about it than they do, I'm right when I ignore it completely and just do geometry with Earth curve edges that are debunked by the black swan. Yeah, that'll make sense. That'll make me sleep better at night. No, it definitely won't. When we're all laughing at you and going, thanks for arguing that we've got a diffraction limit. What's diffraction? Yeah, you guys, you used to use the base geometry to assert that an Earth curve edge got in the way when you ignored all aspects of this diffraction limit and questioned me if I knew what it was. Yeah, well, how times have changed, eh? Shout out to Godzilla37 who says, a globey tipped me off that these super chats trigger them. So here's to that. Thanks for the super chat, Godzilla37. I don't know why super chats would trigger
You and Brian have made a claim that
Why are you here? I've already told you. Get lost, you're a liar. I don't want you here.
Wait for the
I
next
don't
one.
want you here, Rumpus. Right? You're a liar. When you told me that you refracted everything when a tangent point horizon was explicitly described as something that we must factor in with its straight line to it, on recent clips that I've shown my audience, you kept coming back 3 times in a row saying I refracted everything, you piece of shit liar. Never come back. I don't want to deal with you liars. You're just poisoning my audience. Think you can have another crack of the whip? No. Don't come and lie to me and then think you can interject into this conversation. We're here having a good time, laughing about cats, detailing the very perspective you said we didn't need, Rumpus. Now, you're also a known liar, so I don't need your opinion on this. Go away. Go to Bible conversation, which is where I keep sending you, and you keep bouncing back in.
I can't wait to see what they say next.
He was coming in to try and address me about something that he wouldn't have been able to address me about. What would have happened is he would have had to try and overtalk me. He would have called me stupid. I would have brought up, well, if he got a chance to do it, he would have done. I would have brought up the fact that he was trying to tell a surveyor how to do surveying last night. You know, there's a lot of things. The man, like, I could have a normal conversation with Conspiracy Cats. I know, because I was on his channel and he was the moderator, and I know me and him could have a normal conversation once we didn't talk about the globe or flat. Now, me and Rumpus, possibly that couldn't happen, simply because he is so belligerent. Do you know what I mean? Whereas conspiracy cats could probably have a normal conversation with you once it didn't get into globe and flat. But I don't think Rumpus is capable of that. Rumpus has some problems, and he's not capable
Rumpus
of
is
just
a
a normal
liar.
conversation.
Yeah, he's
I
a liar.
already know that.
He's a
We already
proven
know
liar. So if you want to engage with liars when you already know that they're lying to you, and the chances are they're going to lie to you again, then you're like the boy who cried wolf example. Shout out to Thrice 8 Hermes, who recently used this example in terms of describing auto-hoaxing, which we won't get into on this live show. But nevertheless, his example was about the boy who cried wolf, and saying, initially, the village people, they go up and they listen to him telling them that there was a wolf there. But after the third time, they assess the validity of his claim and decide whether or not it's worthy of assessment in the first place. And they say, no, it's not worthy of any assessment whatsoever. Now, the conspiracy theorist, and you might say, actually, him and the wolf are in cahoots. They want to eat all the lamb themselves. So if they can numb the village people into a false sense of security, when he cries wolf, he's done nothing wrong, right? He's got plausible deniability, right? That could be your argument. But aside from that particular argument, we're talking about assessing the validity of a liar. And once you've assessed that validity, do you keep going back so you can assess the validity of anything that that liar's got to say? Shall we spend time assessing the claims of this liar? I already know he's a liar. Now, if I choose to utilise some of the old lies he's told... Now, Katz wasn't even around on the scene when Rumpus and Ruhif were telling us about the geometric horizon, apparently, that it's all been refracted. Lie. Yeah? He wasn't even around then. So, Katz, you've dropped all of these people right in it. Yeah? And now they're having to lie. Now, fortunately for me, I can just state that quite overtly. Refracted everything, you piece of shit liar. No, never come back here, boy who cried wolf. We don't need to even assess any of your claims. Ever again. We know you're the boy who cries wolf and lies a lot, Rumpus, because we've demonstrated you a liar. Don't keep bouncing back in like I'm going to let you take part in the conversation. I'm not. You're not going to poison my audience's ears with your lies. Ever again. Go away.
Let me break it down. I worked for this guy, James McElligott from Limerick, Ireland. And it was about time, guys giving in their time for how they work during the week, 6 hours, 8 hours, 7 hours. And he shows me the list and he goes, you see these two guys, liar and liar. He said, you know what they're saying to me, Neil? I said, what, James? He said, they're saying to me that they think I'm stupid, that I'm going to believe them with this timesheet. They're lying to me and they're saying basically, you're stupid enough to believe me. I was like, oh, yeah, it sounds pretty much right. So liars think you're dumb and they can continually lie to you and you're going to listen.
Yeah.
I second that.
Same goes for NASA. Why don't we spend much time looking at NASA footage? Because I can auto-hoax it. Doesn't matter what it's presenting. It's come from a fake place. In the same way, I don't give any time over to assessing the validity of claims made from Narnia. I know automatically that that place isn't real, therefore any claims from there do not require any of my attention. Now, once I know that the place claimed to have broadcasts coming from it is a lie, I then no longer need to expel any energy on assessing the validity of any claims they make, at all. And that's the same with any liar.
Yeah, what do they say? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me.
No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Correct.
Fool can't get fooled again.
Fool, you can't fool me twice.
That's a song by The Who. Won't get fooled again.
It's who is it? Bush Jr., isn't it?
Yeah, W. You messed that up royally. That was great.
That was hilarious.
Go on, whoever that was Adam?
No, that was Brian saying he messed up, but he said a precedent with that one.
I just said that was hilarious.
Boo.
President.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shatner.
He said he
shout
said,
out to
"Fool me-
Shatner's
fool me
Bassoon, who
once,
says, shout out
shame
to
on
Disco
you."
Ball Earth. No, I'm not going to get to do the shout out unimpeded. Shout out to Shatner's Bassoon. He says, shout out Disco Ball Earth. Thank you very much for the super chat, Shatner's Bassoon. Go ahead. Who was that talking just now?
Rams.
I was
Who?
just trying to get the quote right from Bush. I think it was, "Fool me once, shame on you." See, fool man doesn't get fooled again once he gets fooled once.
That's where you want it.
Right, but whoever said that they're taking you for a fool, Neil, with your time slip example. Exactly. You know, once they've got it over on you once, they think you're a fool. And Rumpus comes here and states that. It's normally his opener, some ad hom demeaning term that he'll ascribe to us before he attacks any of our arguments. Well, that's because he's lying to you and laughing at you while he does it. And for all of you who let him get away with it, more fool you. More fool me, because Quantum Erase has been saying this for a straight year. And I'm like, just let him onto Ballbusters. Now, the reality is, it's not our server, so I can't eject him from the server. I can just keep telling him sod off and not letting him get any opportunity to talk. Other people who are in this server may want to talk to him, and that's not my call. And it's not Quantum Eraser's call either, I might add. Not that I'm trying to twist the knife here, QE. But yeah, it's one of those things that QE's been saying for ages. Why give him any time? I annihilated him, he's a proven liar, don't give him any more of your time. Well, now I've done the same on my show. Sod off. Not worthy of presenting to my audience anymore. You're the boy who cried wolf. Why would we spend any time assessing your nonsense? You're a proven liar.
And he comes on with accusations instead of coming on and saying, "You know what, Nathan, give me a chance to explain. I apologize." No, he comes on calling people liars and idiots.
Which is exactly the MO of a liar. When you're here to punt your lies,
Projector.
immediately accuse any detractors of your lie of being liars. Project it straight onto them.
Yep, that's exactly what he does. I went after him the other day because they were giving him so much time, because they unleash him in the after show, and he just goes on and on and on and on, and people listen to him. I'm like, why are you giving this liar time? So he started calling me wanker and idiot, and he got into it, and I said, I told him, like, well, you're just parroting Nathan Oakley, the liar. So he just reversed it, projected, called me wanker, and just kept calling me names. So I called him a wanker, and I got muted. Because these globe trolls in here that have the mod status, it's just incredible. This whole thing, this after
And that's
show,
the
is
problem with that
absolute
server.
Hey,
poison.
let's not get into the server, right? I'm very grateful to have the access to this server. The fact that
I
there's
agree, but why is he allowed to come on and say that? Even in the after show, Nathan, he's talking about you. These are
well,
the
that's not
battles
to my
that I
audience.
like. What he's talking about.
Just explain this. I don't have control over the server. It's not my server. But what I do have control over is my show. Like Quantum Eraser has control over his show, and he can do whatever he likes. And in certain instances, I think there's been 3 people, it might even be 4, tops, that I've permanently said you're not allowed on my show anymore for varying different reasons. Whether it be porn bombing the show, saying derogatory things about removing parts of my family from me, or overt lying. There's various different reasons that will get you permanently removed from my show. Now, one of them is being the boy who cried wolf and constantly lying. That's not going to help anybody who's listening to this show. Globe or Flatty.
Do you recall?
Theoretically, if I were to build a platform that could host your show, would you consider it?
What do you mean?
He's saying if he starts a Discord channel fully functional, would you switch?
You can't ask that question. Come on.
No, I'm glad the server's the way it is. I'm glad I don't have control over it as well. Yeah, initially you go, I want to be able to control everything. No, much better that it's kept by somebody who's completely neutral. And
that's what he's saying.
Right. You wouldn't have control over that one either. I'm saying if it was fully functional, it had people in it, new people that could actually engage, would you consider it?
No. It'd be a bit useful. If there's other servers I can use and run a show from. I can run a show from any server I like. Right? The fact that I've been so warmly accommodated in this server makes, obviously, there's going to be a greater allegiance to it. Look, there's my name above this show. This isn't my show. It's got my name on it, though. What gives? Live stream, Nathan Oakley, it says. Is it? I didn't type that.
In other words, these people in the after show, it doesn't get heard anywhere outside their ears.
No, well, that's
They're-
not
they're-
that's
they're-
not what
they're
that's
shouting-
not what I'm
they're
saying.
shouting in a closed room.
I don't really care about the after show. I don't care. Like he says, we're sharing this server, and that's fine. I'm talking about the show and people's ability to get on the show, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm
Hey,
very happy. I'm very happy with the
let's-
server that is moaned about by flat earthers because there's moderation from the globe side they don't like. I'm actually very pleased to hear that. Now, that's not because I lack empathy towards your position. I just want to make that clear. I mean, from a producer's point of view, you want the server to be neutral as possible so that anybody coming in goes, right, if you're a flatty, you're not just going to be laughing at us all the time and kicking us out and muting us. And if you're a globie, the same applies. But there's enough of, obviously there's bias moderators that are going to mute flatties and vice versa. Well, that can't be avoided, but the fact that it's there means that the server is what it needs to be for this show to run. So when there's protracted silences, nobody from the audience can say, well, it's because if we go on the server, blah, 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 because I'm a glober. That's not the case.
Those protracted silences are even funnier to me now that I know we've got Glober mods in what's supposed to be a flat Earth server. That's funny. Any of those Glober mods know where their geometric horizon is or anything about their little globe, or they're just going to stay quiet and just mod chats?
Don't know. Don't care.
You got a lot to say after you guys leave.
All I want is the ability for them to come. That's it. The door's open, Fundies. Anybody who says, you need to come to me. Yeah, beg me. Beg me to come to you like I give two craps about what you want. But you can come to me if your desire is in that direction, which it clearly is. You can. You can satisfy your desire to debate me. What's that? You want me where you want me? Nah, I don't care what you want. But that door's open, and there's no excuses. What's that? You'll be shut down in an instant when you beg the question, and that's not fair? Yeah, bleat about it all you like. Like anybody's going to actually back that. What? He pointed out your fallacy, and if you'd have got to the end begging the question, you'd have won? No, you employed a fallacy and you got shut down immediately. What, you don't like that it's possible to shut you down after use of a fallacy? Yeah, see how far that moan gets you. Because that's all they've got.
Shameless plug.
Is that what you come for? I do it to you, to be fair. I do drop into QE Live and go, subscribe today to Nathan Oakley 1980. Go ahead.
We'll get back to the topic. It's a good topic. Yeah, shameless plug. The end of Fight the Fat Girth. Today on the Numpty Clips, 2 p.m. U.S. Central, 8 p.m. UK. It's the end of that numpty dipshit. Stay tuned, man. I'm telling you, it's the end. Thanks.
You mean he's being slowly starved to death, John?
It's Fight the Tight Shirt, man.
Yeah, it's Fight the Fat Girth.
Anyway, besides the personal attacks on his physique, did you see my video on Fight the Flat Earth? Because it's a point where
I was wondering, it was poorly timed. I thought that you thought maybe it was Wednesday, but no, it's Thursday. I thought you were going to do it today.
No, I did it yesterday. I just Rachie00000 released a video, and in it contained part of her argument where somebody was contradicting an argument she'd got from another glober, without going into too much detail. But in it was her putting to Craig that shouldn't there be a bulge in the way? And then him going, don't listen to flat earthers say there should be a bulge in the way. You're like, what? Number one, flat earthers don't make that claim. Number two, yeah, great, Craig. Tell everybody that there shouldn't be a bulge in the way, because I'll just take that out and present it exactly as you've said it.
So she was like, isn't this supposed to be a bulge? And he was like, nah, don't listen to them.
He said, yeah, don't listen to flat earthers when they tell you there should be a bulge in the way. They're taking it all out of context. If you just did it on a basketball, don't listen to them when they say there should be a bulge in the way.
So relax, guy. Don't worry about that. Look over there.
So in other words,
hilarious, man.
Locally flat.
he told her she wouldn't expect to see a bulge.
Well, yeah.
That's what
In other
you
words,
tell
a
woman.
win.
That's hilarious.
Well, that's a win. That's what I'm saying. Don't move past the win. So, right, so we shouldn't expect to see bulge. Right, you see, the thing is, part of your claim has got the word bulge next to it, and the maths for calculating it, and a diagram with the word bulge next to it, and it's the thing that you calculate getting in the way of boats, buildings, and the sun. But what? We shouldn't expect to see it and don't listen to flat earthers who say you should. No, we don't say you should. We point out how it's not there, and when we point out that it's not there, that would be the bulge. You deny that it should be.
Victory.
Yeah, you had a bulge. You had a bulge. It was for the idea that you could prove the globe Earth, but that bulge in your pants just went away when you realized you couldn't.
You had to lower the tone,
I'll
didn't you?
win.
It's been a good month. It's been a very good month. Got lots of fundies on the globe side, essentially peddling flat Earth arguments. It's great. Nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve. Check out my perspective.
You forgot about
I'm saying,
optics,
I can't
Nathan.
wait.
You forgot about
I can't
optics.
wait.
Obviously,
I
it's just a
can't wait.
limitation of the camera when this thing's got the bottom missing, because it's nowhere near the horizon or Earth curve. So in that instance, forget about the fact that it's got a whole number in feet or meters attributable and an Earth curve edge that once beyond it's going to be missing because of. Forget all that. It's a limitation because of the camera. Obviously, something that we never factor in our maths. That's what it is.
What are they going to prove for us next? That's the question. What are the ballers going to prove to us next?
Well,
I see it as
sorry, Adam.
only quickly. It's not even explaining it away. It's I've explained the principle. Now you can forget about it. As far as I can see with the Rayleigh criterion,
yeah,
I can explain it average, not as well as some of the flat Earth versions, but because I've done so, forget all about it now. It's gone. Don't look over here anymore.
Yeah, check it out. Things can disappear because their angle gets too small. Now let's just forget about that because I've done a very good job of explaining the flat Earth argument, which we completely ignore in our maths. So let's now forget about it. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to Conspiracy Cats for making it such a wonderful month, to all of you in the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Curve. That's funny now.
Chocolate. You remember you remember my frustration as a regular fan when I was trying to come through the other way?
Yes, I do.
How the fuck is a new person anyway? Whatever.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
What are you moaning about? Hopefully not me.
No, not you. And I always start off with, no, it's not you. I would love to have a conversation at some point with you, like at some time after the show, when you have time someday.
I see. Yeah, in the after show, maybe.
Yeah.
I just want to let everyone know that Bob Nodell proved relative density again.
Don't chuckle. Don't laugh at him. Don't start off with that tone. I can do without the
I
aggro.
have to. It's ridiculous. I have to. It's he claimed that relative density can't factor in an acceleration, even though Anthony showed an acceleration up the way. Because he was saying that when you drop something, it accelerates, right? And then And the first thing I thought about was, what about Felix Baumgartner's jump, right? Because he accelerated, right, and then decelerated when he got into the denser air, right? This is what happened. And then Bob brings up when he used to do skydiving in the military or something like that. And then he brought up Felix Baumgartner. So, I mean, where should we go? Do you expect me not to laugh at that? It's like relative density is no good. Anyway, here is a thing that absolutely proves it.
Yeah, it's doing what he's saying
Not
is,
really.
by comparison, he's doing a conspiracy cats. He's saying, oh, by the way, geometry and Earth curve, yeah, absolutely. Not perspective. Now let's have a quick look at perspective and how it makes things disappear. So we can later forget all about it.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. I'd give Bob more dues if he stopped trying to make claims, and then when he's pulled on those claims, say they're only his opinions. You know, if he just stick to the claims and then either support them or not support them, and either support them or concede he can't, one or the other, instead of saying they're his opinions. But that's besides the point. The point is, he gave a perfect example of real-world relative density equilibrium. Baumgartner jumped out in very thin atmosphere, sorry about the sphere part, and he accelerated. But when he got into the thicker atmos, he decelerated. And that was Bob's example of a debunk of relative density. And it was not mentioned about Anthony's egg going up the way.
What?
So yeah.
Hold on a second. Sorry,
What
the
did
bits
the
at the
downward
end.
bias
Sorry.
increase that? How is he decelerating? I don't even
Sorry.
understand.
Why is Bob attempting to debunk relative density? Shouldn't he be attacking the heliocentric model, gravity, things of that nature? Things that are asserted in a world where we rotate and move around the sun. Why is he debunking relative density, something that's demonstrably, observably obvious?
Because it's Anthony's
Because he wants to
claim.
dielectric
No,
accelerate.
it's very simple. It's very
what
simple.
did-
That way, he doesn't have to deal with actually supporting his own
Is
claim.
there anything on me?
So wait a minute. Did Felix Baumgartner dielectrically decelerate? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, if the downward bias, my man's already going down. Shouldn't the bias kick in? Like,
No,
big
he
time? Like,
dielectric
what you mean?
accelerated, Chuck.
Come on,
Dielectric
man. This is
accelerated.
Always
anyway.
remember that Felix slowed down as
Don't
well
forget-
when he was falling through the air.
That's what we're talking
That's
about.
what I'm saying.
That's what we're
That's what
talking
I'm
about.
saying.
I just happen to remember that that's the very point we've been discussing for 5 minutes. Well, thank you for interjecting, Anthony.
Sorry.
Right.
It's because Anthony's the main cog in relative density, and Bob Nodell does not like Anthony.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Well, he didn't address the fact that Anthony made an egg accelerate up the way. There was no. He said relative
He will not.
cannot cause an acceleration. It's like,
It also-
are you sure?
It also
Go on.
decelerate. So in the egg, right, the egg starts stationary. Well, we'll assume in a perfect example, it's perfectly stationary, right? Then you add your salt and it starts to accelerate, increase speed. But then it reaches equilibrium again. In other words, it decelerates, slows down, and then stops. Well, the same could be said, I don't know if this is true, I hope it is. I'm just assuming by extrapolation. The helium that was on the ground starts at 0 and then is released and increases its velocity as it accelerates up the way. When it reaches its ideal height, it's going to have slowed down as it reaches the less dense medium. Yeah? So the same is applied to the egg. Even if I'm wrong about Felix Baumgartner and he didn't go high enough, it's not relevant because you can just show it in the egg. The egg increases its velocity upwards and then slows down to a stop.
Well,
So
kind of like a
forces-
helium balloon, that will only go so high as well.
So applying Newton's laws, a force is required to get it to accelerate from stationary, and then another force is
Wrong. Don't bring up Newton's laws. Wrong. Do you need a force to have an acceleration?
Do you need to ruin my point before I even make the point?
Oh yeah, Newton's
Yes.
laws.
His
Why?
specialty.
Because they're bunk.
Because the laws of motion
And
of
that's the
Newton
point I'm
were
trying
not
to
right.
make.
Because the laws of
Newton-
motion
Alright,
of Newton
continue
were
if you're gonna
not
bunk 'em, go.
right.
Newton's
Yeah, let me-
laws
that's-
are
thank
only
you for
valid
giving-
within his modeling.
Five people talking now.
Thank you
Five
for
people.
giving me permission to continue making my point, John. I will continue. Thank you.
I
a
gave you
force-
permission to make your fucking point. You said Newton's laws. Then you said, "You condescending motherfucker, you."
I'm just trying to get my fucking
Let me ask
point
you a
out.
question there. Let's get into it. You want to challenge me? Okay. Do you need a force for an acceleration, Tony?
I just
Did
want
you
to
have
make my fucking
breakfast?
point.
Do you
I don't
need a
wanna be
force?
fair.
Right, everyone else shut up. Just look, don't rumpus the question. Is being asked, do you need a force to cause acceleration? Anthony,
No, I'm
please.
being rumpused. All I'm asking is to be able to finish making my point for it to be then dissembled by anybody that wants to.
Right, Anthony, you're going to plead for that from me when in the live show I specifically said that if you're going to use something that's false, or in my example, a fallacy, it'll get cut off and corrected. But you just want to ramble your way through this as it's being corrected and plead that if only you got to make the full point without anything being addressed, you'd be all cool, right? No, that's not going to fly, obviously.
But the point I'm trying to get is the people on our side to hear the arguments being disassembled. That's all.
All right, go ahead. I
Fair
give
enough,
you
yeah.
permission to do it.
Thank you, John. So
You're
when
welcome.
the egg begins to accelerate, a force is required according to Newton. But then when it starts to slow down and stop again, another force is required that's the opposite force that came in before. I'd like to know what those forces are because they don't seem to be compatible. Now you can pull it apart, John.
Fair enough. If we'd have all shut up, we'd have got there a lot quicker. I am actually sorry, Anthony.
Within
I'm sorry.
the laws
Can I
of
just apologise
unicorn
to Anthony? Hello?
biochemistry.
Hello? Sorry, Anthony. You were completely correct. My bad.
Always goes wrong when John joins, doesn't it? Condescending asshole or whatever it was he called me.
They have breakfast.
He did have this conversation literally like earlier. 2 seconds and then wham, bust.
Yeah, because I told you I'm not putting up with Newtonian laws anymore, and especially from our side. But the question still stands, not the Tony. Do you need a force for an acceleration?
Well, in Newtonian principles, yes.
Anyone else?
In relative density, too.
You just need a
In reality.
disequilibrium.
How would you define a force? I don't know.
You just need a disequilibrium.
No, a force. Yeah,
Maybe a
yeah.
cause?
That's the cause. But the force is when something is getting subjected to something that would displace it or create pressure in some way.
Maybe if I give a real world
Temporarily.
example, that'll help the audience. So if you imagine Luke Skywalker dangling upside down and he needs to get to his lightsaber, just imagine that.
So what was the best answer?
Question still stands. Of course, everyone knows that they better not answer because there's something coming, right?
No. So Newtonian classical physics states that a force is required to accelerate mass, but we can also make mass accelerate with disequilibrium.
Really? What's mass?
What's mass?
Mass is a concept that is used to describe the weight of an object without the force of gravitation pulling on it.
So you can accelerate concepts. Can you accelerate freedom for us?
Accelerate freedom. Yeah, I could kill the prime minister, and that would really accelerate freedom.
Oh, brilliant.
good
Oh,
one.
you are so good for the internet, man. Every time. Brilliant.
Hypothetical. That's not going to get me
Brilliant, Tony. Brilliant.
Stop.
You do this
Not a
every
big deal. It's not going to get me demonetized. It was a hypothetical. Hello?
time. You think that gives your point weight? Pun intended? No, it doesn't.
I can calculate
It just makes you a dick in that moment for saying something like that on the show.
Yeah, but he
I know, but I
can't
could
Don't
accelerate
say that.
freedom that way.
It's not fucking funny. It's not a
Hold
good
on.
example. It's
Look,
only
the only
annoying.
way- accelerate
Guys,
freedom.
I'm running out of
Ow.
fucks. No more
What the
swearing.
fuck, Arwin?
I don't know.
I am William Wallace.
What the hell's going on in here right now?
I've just stepped into a time portal or something and fast forwarded or rewinded about 20.
Freedom!
This is
Don't
what happens
say
when
those
when
things
we're
on
not
the internet.
overburdened. When we're not overburdened with globe proofsies.
No,
This is what happens.
This is what happens when Anthony manages to rile up the audience so he doesn't have to answer the question that's on the table in terms of mass. So where we ended
So he's a
was,
baller?
now he's getting the same assistance from Neil. So we ended with if mass is a concept, how are you going to accelerate it?
If mass is a concept, how are you going to accelerate maths? With maths?
No. In physical, we're talking about. Oh, this is physics. This is a physics forum, not a maths forum.
Yeah, but I can't accelerate mass, a concept, unless you allow me to do it with maths.
So let's just cut off the end bit and start that again. Do you want to repeat yourself?
Unless you allow me to calculate the force.
No, that's the end part. No, that's the bit I don't want. You can't. What now?
I can't accelerate mass. All right, I can't accelerate a concept.
And mass is a concept.
Yeah. I need maths to be able to do it.
Okay.
Well, you can accelerate densities.
So you need one
depending
concept
on
to
if they're
accelerate
solid
another.
state.
What?
No, I just need maths to be able to
Whoa,
accelerate a concept.
You can accelerate density? What are you talking about?
I can accelerate it mathematically. I need the maths to do it because
Not
F
you.
equals ma,
Not you.
right?
Not you, Arwin. He said I can accelerate density. What do you mean?
Well, if it's in a solid state, it is state conditional, right? But I don't even know why this happens, right? Why did you bring in Newtonian mechanics when you full well know that in the entirety of his model, including his laws, right, which are specifically within his modeling work, it excludes gas activity, right? It completely excludes it. So why bring it even up?
I'm going to say, I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go out
that's
on a
the
limb.
question. Everyone lost the question.
I know I'm about to say, yes, you do need a force to accelerate something. Now, I'm just going to
Incorrect.
say that and see what happens.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. Gas. What provides the initial velocity?
It's the phase change.
Where's the force?
And potentially, if it's a heat-related phase change, then it would be from the heat that caused the phase change.
Nope. No, heat's not a force.
What?
What about temperature?
Excuse me?
What?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
heat does cause
Energy.
gas particles to get
Energy.
excited and get
Oh,
faster,
hold on,
right?
hold on, I'm getting rumpus. What do you mean,
No,
force?
energy.
Wait, stop. I said a gas. I'm not talking about phase changes or anything. So that's
Yeah,
a red
what's
herring.
the
Hold on, I
force
can't
that
make an
keeps
argument
gas
unless I can.
moving
Hold on,
around?
I can't make
It's
an argument.
expansion in all directions.
Hold on, QE's limited my argument then. So you want the argument to start from a position where we've got gas initially, and then say how does it start accelerating? But if it's gas, it's already moving at high velocity anyway to be gas.
I think
Where'd
that's
the
his
force come
point. I think it's his point, right? Like, if you need a force for acceleration, well, gas is always accelerating. Where's the force?
Yep.
Would you not say that
Thanks.
it might be a force that we just don't understand?
Argument from ignorance fallacy. Yeah, I'll take
but that's
that.
correct. Well, no, that's correct. No, that is technically correct though, isn't it? We don't know
That's the honest.
You're correct, Brian.
Go on then.
We don't know the cause of an entropy increase, which is what we'd be describing in this example with gas. Well, what's the why? What's the cause? We don't know. That's why it's a law and not
Isn't it
scientifically
temperature?
valid.
The effect is local air pressure differential, and with that energy, right? But what causes that? What causes gas to do that? Well, we don't know. We just know that gas does that, and we can define what it does and how.
Right, that's the conclusion then, isn't it? So if you're going to assert Newtonian forces, then you go to gas and it's immediately debunked. Because, no, it's already moving at high velocity. It's not got any force attributed to it to do that. That's just what it does.
Does anyone
When
remember
gas
my original?
moves at high velocity in Euclidean space, it's not just going to still move. It will actually set in turbulence, which is well established. The faster gas
hold on,
moves
Arwin.
in Euclidean space,
God,
turbulence
don't need to
happens.
dilute this point down into the more complex effects of an entire dynamic system. The base point that QE's made's very eloquently been done through discussion, and I just want to thank him. Yeah, thank you. That makes perfect sense now, because I've been making that argument without linking the two together in terms of, well, there's no ascribable force to these gases. Now, I formally just said, well, elastic collisions, because that process described in elastic collisions is the point you're making. But when you actually boil it down to what's the force that's causing that? Well, there isn't one.
Precisely.
What I originally said, I don't know if anyone remembers it, but what I originally said when QE first asked that question is, how do you define force or a force?
That's another good question. There's an answer to that.
Okay, go on. I was about to say it's like mass then. In other words, either an equivocation or a concept. But what's the answer?
Well, there's a lot of different this tells you that there's big problems in Shangri-La. Whenever you talk and ask people define force, what do they usually do? F equal ma, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's false. But you'll get a bunch of other different definitions, not only from people you talk to. If you look it up, there's a number of different definitions. There's a rooster in a hen house when you get that, folks. I'm just telling you. Different ones.
Well, that's what pull F equals ma apart. Obviously, it's because of the m, right?
It's because there's a number of different problems with it, but that's one big part, yes.
Okay, so m being the mass, we've just covered that. What's the other problems?
I don't want to get into Newtonian problems. You asked me what a force was. That's the important question. So if pressure equals force over area, and it does, then if you rearrange that little equation, what does force equal? Pressure times area.
Okay.
Simple as that.
But isn't this the base of geology, though? Isn't that what geology studies? Pressure and time, right? Well, it's not time, it's area. Okay.
Well, that killed everything.
I'll
I was going to say that went down like a lead balloon.
No, it didn't go down. I'm just contemplating it.
In the mix there a little bit for me. That's it. What does it equal? Well, it doesn't equal anything, does it? It's not in of itself. It's a description of something else. In this case, the force. When you rearrange it, yeah. It has nothing in of itself, does it? You're saying what's the force still? Well, you've just rearranged the equation to be pressure times area. But what is it?
Pressure.
Over an area.
Yeah, that's all it is then, isn't it?
Pressure over an area.
What about an
All
electromotive?
gas pressure is directed by is the
just before
pressing on the container.
Sorry, Owen, it's the second time I've Fundy muted you. Go ahead.
All that gas pressure is forced by where it attains everything that it does emotion-wise is from the pressure on the container, directly or indirectly. Pressure on the other gas that surrounds it onto the container eventually. That's where it gets its pressure from.
So the firmament.
So when you're doing that, you're describing the amount of force and not what the force is in any way, other than it is pressure. It's generated by the pressure. You describing it again in the behavior of the gas molecules.
I think I figured it out. So when you say the word force, essentially this rooster in the hen house is there because they have an attribution of a cause. And when you say force, it's merely a way of describing something. So they've got to take it from merely a description with no causal attributes to something that can do something. Now, even better if the something that can do something is gravity and doesn't really exist at all, because you've got something that doesn't require any attribution of cause in the description, be it force over an area or the pressure, that doesn't require any causal attribution to describe it. You can just describe it and rearrange the formula any way you like. But if you're a magician, you'll insert something causal into that description. So that's why there's a rooster in the hen house.
Totally, and that's why then, because of that, Rumpus can end up claiming that gas moving upwards is also accelerating down, because of that.
And the cause comes, and the cause comes in the acceleration, and the acceleration is caused by gravity, regardless of up or down, because you've got the acceleration due to gravity pulling the gas around it down, forcing the gas up. In other words, a convoluted juxtaposition between relative density disequilibrium and a gravitational attribution of a causal effect to a description that doesn't have any causal attributions?
Well,
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
gases
question?
tend to move about.
Most people, if you ask them once they're not completely fundamentalists, and you ask them why does gas move around as it does and go from high pressure to low, whatever, they say this is what causes this, and they say most people would probably just say to you, that's caused by entropy, but it's not caused by entropy. Entropy is just descriptive of it, isn't it? So
Right.
when those bonds break, let's just say water, once those hydrogen bonds break, and the single atom is just bonded with intramolecularly bonded, as they say, or as QE says. It's like, what causes that and all the other ones, which are now single entities, what causes them to start moving around? What causes them? Supposedly they're moving anyway when they're water. So when water becomes water vapor, what causes it to move? That we don't know.
Right. And if we did, we wouldn't have it described as a natural law. I pulled up that Chris, whatever he's called, from the BBC, the guy who hosts The Sky at Night. Well, he's describing his scientific misunderstandings when he's saying we're looking into these sciencey things as flat earthers, and it's just us utilising common sense. It's like, no, we've described natural law. Now that's describing a phenomena that happens always. Well, describing it doesn't tell you how it's caused. So when Brian says, well, what is the cause of the gas, for instance, filling the space? Well, I don't know why the gas does that. That's just what gas does. And it's described in the second law of thermodynamics as an entropy increase. Well, that entropy increase is what you're describing in the natural law. That's the thing that occurs always. Now, I don't know why it occurs always. It doesn't matter. I don't need to know why it occurs always when you've got a sky vacuum. Because it would be occurring. But isn't, we're still breathing, violating the sky vacuum. But that's not science. We don't know why. And that's why science is what it is, a very powerful tool for establishing what? The cause of a phenomena. So could you put entropy through the scientific method? Absolutely. Do I think anybody's going to do it and find the cause? No. I think you're trying to find the meaning of life if you try and find the origin of entropy. What you're trying to figure out at base level is, where did it all begin? What's the start of this process called entropy? Well, you're looking for the start at the beginning of existence? Yeah, not too big a task.
What is the
Jesus
cause
at the
of all
beginning.
causes? Right?
I have a question about the force.
Entropy is that flow, right? And it's going to have an end process, an end of the process, which we can easily describe. But going back is to figure the cause. What starts it off? Well, if you rewind entropy, what do you end up with? You end up with a time machine that takes you back to the beginning. That's where you get your cause. How did it all begin? Well, God, there's your answer. Short
you
answer.
just revealed the answer.
Let
The
there be
cause of
light.
the cause of entropy is time. You can just never scientifically prove that.
Time's just a concept. Time's just a
it's not
concept. That
time
doesn't cause
either.
anything.
No,
No time, no entropy.
no time. No time, no entropy.
I thought time was a concept.
That's profound.
No, you
Yeah.
qualify entropy.
I know.
This is awkward. Owen Scott probably realises this and why I said it. You can qualify entropy with time, don't you, Arwin?
Yeah, of course it's a derived concept. It's you can never undo time or negate it, right?
Wrong.
It's purely conception, but entropy always expresses itself throughout time, throughout the flow of things.
Nah, you express it with your description of that concept of time. That doesn't mean you can flip the table and make it influential. It isn't. It's a concept. That's your limitation in your language and your concepts, not a not a description, not a limitation on the universe.
Entropy is directly proportional to time, but that doesn't mean time causes entropy.
Not in a scientific sense, but if there was no time, then there is no entropy.
Not in any sense. It's not science. I just said it. Take it in.
If there was no time, what's time?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to reverse that formula as well and just say it's how much change we observe.
I'm not claiming science.
If we didn't have time, Arwin, then all we'd lack is something to compare the entropy against.
Exactly. Much more eloquently put, Adam. Exactly. You wouldn't be able to qualify the entropy. How much change has occurred? Well, we haven't got that concept yet of time. So therefore, nothing causes it, would be your argument if you didn't have this limited description of time to qualify it within your language. But again, it doesn't mean that that's in any way causal.
No, it would only happen once time proceeds, right? And before that, you wouldn't even know there is such a thing.
What's time? How does it proceed? Show me it moving.
That's what I just asked.
All it means is you wouldn't know what to write on your x-axis. Do you get me? You'd be thinking, what shall I compare it against? Because I've not invented this concept of time yet.
It's
so
crude.
Einsteinian time
Yeah,
conception. Don't
Because,
put
look,
that shit on me.
Crude.
There wouldn't be any x-axis. Hello, there wouldn't be any x-axis.
Just because you can put numbers on an x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put hours, minutes, years, light years, whatever you like on that axis, is in no way qualifiable in terms of the progression of the existence of entropy, decay, change. Those things that we experience, that isn't time. The fact that we merely describe it as being proportional to time doesn't mean that it's causal. I keep saying it.
Right. Also, the time axis is W, not X.
Entropy is not caused by anything. Entropy is a description of a phenomenon. We're just describing the phenomenon. Entropy is just a name we gave to the phenomenon. We don't know what causes the phenomenon.
Right.
Well, we know it's God. We could say it's God, but outside of that, we can't. We don't know anything.
Big difference between a description and an explanation.
I asked somebody that yesterday. They couldn't tell me. R.C. Meisty, Mr. Intellectual Elite Teacher. I posed that question. He couldn't answer.
What was the question? What's the difference between an explanation and a description?
And an explanation?
What's the difference between a description and explanation? Yeah, everyone heard it in the voice chat. And then they start laughing at him for good reason.
John, you should also ask him, does he understand? Can he explain the difference between a calculation and a measurement? That seems to be a sticking,
if he can't
be a sticking point.
If he can't give a difference between an explanation and a description, do you think asking him any other question besides are you breathing is appropriate after that?
Well, yeah, because when Whitsitt was debating that septic tank, he basically got him cornered with the explanation for the differences between calculation and measurement, and he seemed to conflate the two as the same. And I'm wondering, do other people in this topic, or is that just him? But I suspect there are other people that think calculations and measurements are the same.
Yeah, all of them. It's called the reification fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. Nathan's got it.
To be fair, if you ask R.C. Meisty if he's breathing, he might say, "Am I?"
That sounds like him.
I think all analogies using septic tanks stink.
It's because they're full of shit.
So descriptions are what is occurring, and the explanation is the why it's occurring.
How and why for explanations? You let it out of the bag. I wanted to keep it a mystery.
Well, I want my audience to know the difference.
So in that context, then I could describe the egg accelerating and decelerating as a reduction in entropy followed by an increase in entropy, right?
It's the difference between you qualifying the egg accelerating and describing its speed. And
yeah, because I'm putting pressure in, aren't I?
Right, just let me.
So descriptions. Let's get back to that, Nathan. You're correct. Descriptions deal with the what's and the is's. Explanations deal with the hows and the whys. So that's close. So go ahead.
Who go ahead?
Who go ahead? Yeah.
You go ahead with the entropy egg.
I'm saying that if entropy is the description of the behavior of matter and an acceleration occurs, I could then describe the acceleration of the egg and then the subsequent deceleration of the egg as a decrease in entropy followed by an increase in entropy.
Entropy of what?
The pressure that was added when I added the salt relative to how much force is applied against the surface of the egg.
increase? You add salt and it increases entropy.
By putting more pressure below the egg, which then pushes
Pressure.
against
You added pressure.
against the surface of the bottom
That's
surface of
not
the
it.
egg. And then once it runs out of that, I'll use the word loosely, fuel, then it begins to decelerate, and that's the removal of the pressure limited by how much salt I put in.
Yeah, that's a weak association with entropy. You
No
replace
way.
pressure with entropy.
It's a brilliant application.
No,
What are you
it's not.
talking
It's not.
about?
There is a link there.
What? No,
There
it's
is a
not.
link there. It's just not great.
Entropy just
I
results
would
from a
say
beginning stage to an end stage in the setup, however you altered it.
You're all being entropists.
I
It's
would
just
say
scrambled because it's
I
an
would
egg.
say that Anthony is showing a demonstration of what's described as entropy.
Yeah, I agree.
Would anyone disagree with that?
No, it's returning to
Well,
equilibrium. So yeah,
I think it's rotten how you're treating them.
Well, I would say,
And I feel
would
like a
say
massive
this.
victim
Look,
today, I'll be honest.
I'll say this. There's that video that John always shows where what is he? Is it Richard Feynman? I'm not sure who it is. Where the air or the gas goes into the other chamber where there is none. If
That's
that
not
happens,
normal.
that
Right, entropy increase. Because from the beginning of the moment where the situation was changed, there would only be the entropy doing its thing, causing the gas to move to its final state. That's what entropy is.
Nice
You
No.
have an
No,
alteration
wrong.
introduced, and
No.
then things change according to
Wrong.
entropy.
No, that's wrong. Incorrect.
incorrect. Not
It's a
causing it to do
demonstration
that.
of the dual expansion of gas.
well, hold on. What was
Hold
wrong with
on,
what I
hold
said?
on. No, it's not causing the gas to fill the empty container. That's not a cause. That's just a description of what occurs. It fills
The effect.
That's
the
what I'm
empty
saying.
space. Guys, hello? It fills the empty space. Yeah? The gas fills the space. That's the description of the entropy increase. It's not an entropy increase caused the gas to fill the space. That's not what occurs.
That's not what I said.
You,
That's not
Arwin.
what I said either.
That's what Arwin said. Yeah, it was.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
You did say
Yeah,
entropy.
you
my
did.
point,
Cause-
Yeah, you did.
my point.
No, I
My
said
point
all that's
was-
happening is the entropy.
Well,
You
my
said
point
that
was-
the entropy
Causes.
causing the gas to
Causes.
expand.
That's what you said.
Okay,
Come
well
on,
then
Al,
I
you
slipped
got it
through
wrong.
the word cause, but it's very hard when 5 people constantly talk right through you every time you start.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Causal relationships are established through
Oh,
the scientific method.
boo-hoo.
Yeah, don't boo-hoo him. Causal relationships are established through science through independent and dependent variable. Now, a dependent variable would definitely be an entropy increase. That's a phenomenon you can observe. Therefore, you could put it through the scientific method. But it doesn't mean that it has been. It's just a description of what occurs. The gas filled the space. That's entropy increase.
Exactly.
Well,
And
hold on,
the-
Arwin, because
the guy that did it
Arwin,
said-
I went
Alright.
first. Okay, so I'm trying to clear up my side. The reason I brought it up is because he's not putting anything in. He's not doing anything like Anthony's doing with his egg by putting in the salt. But it's happening anyway. This is my point.
Well, he is doing something. He's opening the valve. So he's
So are you
altering the
saying-
setup.
But
Are
he's
you
not
saying-
inputting any. All right.
Eli, are you saying Anthony approached it the wrong way?
Yeah, yeah.
No, the entropy
That's
gas
right.
man effectively altered the available container. That's what happened.
Acknowledge the pun.
Yeah, that's correct, Darwin. He increased the volume. Yes.
Exactly. And then entropy starts to do its thing. Or maybe that doesn't cause anything. It's the only thing that happens. Right? That's all I wanted to say.
I got your pun, Neil.
I think you better define entropy first before you start applying it to this. That would probably be a good idea.
That
Yeah,
last
I'd like to
pun
hear
was
Who, me? I can do that.
the last pun was beyond reproach.
Very nice. Very nice.
Nice one.
Ain't this hard boiled when it comes to it.
When Nathan comes up with one, it's a good one. And then
Yeah, but
Brian-
Neil had a good one.
Don't get
Neil-
too over easy over there.
Stop with the egg puns. You're scrambling my mind.
Oh God,
Say,
it's
Neil
gonna
had a
descend
good
into-
one. Everyone's treating Anthony rotten.
God, it's going to
Yeah.
descend into non-stop egg puns, so I'm going to end the show there and say a massive, huge, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and becoming a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!